Chapter 1 Rockefeller Charlotte. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Who? 10,000 30,221. 10,000 30,221. A strong-looking kid, maybe 17 or 18, was down by the water, hoisting a dumbbell that looked 10 times bigger than him, swinging it around. Each swing kicked up a little gust of wind, and he'd been at it practically all day. Sweat was pouring off him, running down those cut muscles and soaking into the ground. He stood about 6'3", solid muscle, so it was hard to believe he was only 14. 14,000, asterisk thump, star. He got to 14,000, and his arms just gave out. The dumbbell crashed to the ground. Ugh. I'm beat. He plopped down, gasping for air, arms shaking like crazy. 3,000 more reps than yesterday. He pumped his fist, stoked. This dumbbell weighed 100 tons, but he could swing it that many times. That's way beyond normal human strength. Yeah, so, he'd been transported to this world where strength is everything, and he knew this world pretty well. It was straight out of the One Piece anime he used to watch as a kid. He'd landed right in the One Piece world, but it looked like he arrived early. When he was 10, he'd seen a newspaper article about the Rocks pirates, and the timeline right now was only 1480. That meant Luffy wouldn't set sail for another 40 years. Charlotte was floored. Anyone who's seen One Piece knows that world is no joke. Pirates could show up any day and turn things upside down. Sure, there weren't as many pirates back then, but still, a crew could raid your town at any time. What made it worse? Charlotte was smack dab in the second half of the Grand Line, the New World, as they called it later. That really spooked him. Getting stuck in a 10-year-old's body had already freaked him out, but finding out he was in the New World. Major crisis time. After the initial panic, he calmed down. He used to be a mercenary, so as weird as all this was, he managed to pull himself together and accept it. How he became a mercenary is another story. He heard you could make bank working as a mercenary in the Middle East over the summer, and he must have had a brain fart because he let a friend talk him into joining up, and that was the start of his mercenary career. As they say, if you play with fire, you're gonna get burned. During a firefight, a grenade popped up out of nowhere, right next to him. No idea who threw it. Boom. Before he could react, he was ripped apart. Then lights out. Next thing he knew, he was in this world. A 10-year-old kid. Turns out the original owner was unlucky. Waves had dragged him out to sea while he was fishing, and he'd been smashed against some rocks and knocked out. So Charlotte had moved in. The island he was on was tiny, maybe 1,000 people, just a small town. It was in the first half of the New World, not too many pirates around because the G8 Marine base wasn't too far off. Sure, it wasn't one of the famous bases from later in the show, but still, it gave a 10-year-old kid like Charlotte some peace of mind. Once he got his bearings, he started racking his brain, trying to remember everything he knew about One Piece, and that's when he got a surprise. Even though he'd watched One Piece growing up, he hadn't had much time for it as a mercenary. He'd forgotten most of the plot, but now, he could remember almost everything crystal clear. That got him hyped. With those memories, if he played his cards right, he could make it to the end. Of course, he didn't just want to scrape by, he wanted to take risks, make a name for himself. Settling wasn't his style. His name in this life was Rockefeller Charlotte. Once he knew he was in the One Piece world, he started planning his training. Having watched the show, he knew how dangerous this world was, especially during the Great Pirate Era. Pirates were everywhere. He didn't want to end up as some random casualty. If he was gonna live a full life, he needed to train. He knew the basic power-up systems in One Piece: swordsmanship, hand-to-hand combat, hockey, devil fruits, spear fighting, all paths to becoming stronger. Charlotte was seriously thinking about his path. Being a former mercenary, he first thought about spear skills. Only problem: he didn't even have a spear. And the guns in this world were flintlocks, so that idea was immediately shot down. He considered other options. Devil fruit? Nope. Did the kid leave him a devil fruit lying around? Where would he even get one? Hockey? Armament hockey? His 10-year-old body wasn't ready for that. Observation hockey? Could be trained. Conqueror's hockey? Only 1 in a million had it, and he didn't know if he was special enough. After ditching those systems, he was left with swordsmanship and hand-to-hand combat. He knew a little about that, worth a shot. With a goal in mind, Charlotte made a plan. His first goal was to train his body. His model was Zorro. The anime showed clearly how Zorro trained: explosive lower body training, lifting dumbbells and jumping, explosive upper body training, swinging dumbbells around, and so on. Combined with the physical and endurance training he did as a mercenary, this could work. As for swordsmanship, he was clueless, but he figured he could just swing a sword. He figured if he kept swinging, something would click. Having Zorro to use as a guide gave Charlotte some serious motivation. He didn't want to waste the opportunity as a time traveler. With that in mind, Charlotte chilled in his thatched hut for a couple of days, then started training. After recovering from his injuries, he was surprised at how fast he healed. He was up and about in 2 days. When he was rescued from the beach, he'd broken several bones, but after eating a few meals of meat, he was miraculously better, and nobody seemed surprised. It was like it was totally normal. Then he realized what kind of meat he was eating. It was the Sea King that chomped off Shank's arm at the start of One Piece, a Sea King-class beast. That gave Charlotte a new idea about how to get stronger: eating. Chapter 2: The Wild Wolf Gang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You can also get stronger by eating sea monster meat. Strong people eat a lot. Hunting sea monsters isn't easy. A 10-year-old kid can't take them on. Training is the priority. Once you're strong enough to defend yourself, then you can hunt sea monsters. Charlotte's island is small, with only the port's flatlands habitable, supporting just over 1,000 people. Mountains cover 90% of the island behind the port, completely uninhabited, perfect for Charlotte to train and hunt. As an orphan, Charlotte never knew her parents and relied on the mayor's family for support. Life was hard. Explaining why she tried fishing in the first place, she just got unlucky and swept away by a wave. Leaving her hut, Charlotte headed into the vast mountains with a wood-chopping machete. She set a goal: to conquer this mountain. At first, she drank spring water and ate fruit, almost eating poisonous berries several times, but then, her mind would react in time, almost like Spider-Man's spider sense. But here, it was more like predicting the future. Relying on her danger sense, Charlotte became self-sufficient in the mountains. Thriving, she set traps, hunted prey, and fought. She'd occasionally go down the mountain to trade furs for weapons. This year of training didn't make Charlotte feel lonely. Instead, she was excited, genuinely feeling stronger. Every morning, she felt stronger than the day before. Her body wasn't as frail, no longer able to be knocked over by a wave. She could even fight wild boars head-on. After every injury, a big meal would have her back to normal the next day. This made Charlotte aware of the strangeness of the One Piece world. This year's basic training wasn't cutting it. Simple push-ups and running weren't effective anymore. Even doing push-ups all day didn't make her tired. She needed more. She went down the mountain with the valuable animal skins she'd collected. At the port market, she saw a kid about 5 feet tall carrying cargo taller than himself, with everyone giving him a wide berth. Isn't that Charlotte? Didn't she disappear? Some familiar faces were suspicious. Charlotte had been up in the mountains for a year, rarely coming down, only returning to buy necessities, making her a rare sight. Even the mayor probably couldn't find her. Charlotte stopped in a prominent spot, spread out a blanket, and laid down the fur, quietly waiting for buyers. People gathered around, pointing. Annoyed Charlotte. Buy something or get lost. You're killing my business. Charlotte yelled at the crowd. Everyone went silent, staring at Charlotte like she was crazy. This made Charlotte even more annoyed. Kid, you can't just set up shop without asking who's in charge. Since Charlotte was lifting the fur, a group had been watching her. It's the Wild Wolf Gang boss. Seeing the Wild Wolf Gang, people scattered. Move it. 4 or 5 Wild Wolf Gang thugs cleared a path. A rough-looking guy with a big gold chain and a gold tooth stepped forward. Charlotte frowned, surprised. She didn't expect to find gangsters in a town of 1,000, but Charlotte wasn't scared. What are you looking at, kid? You gotta pay up to set up here. The Wild Wolf Gang boss walked up and looked down at Charlotte, flipping through the fur. Ha! This fur's top-notch, not a scratch on it. The Wild Wolf Gang boss picked up 2 fox furs. That's right, these 2 furs are your fee. The Wild Wolf Gang boss went to leave. Charlotte grabbed his wrist and glared at him. Huh? The Wild Wolf Gang boss looked at her little hand, yanked hard, but couldn't break free. He looked at Charlotte with a nasty expression. "Give me the money, that's 20 berries each," Charlotte said calmly. Hearing the unfamiliar word berries, the Wild Wolf gang boss burst out laughing. His sidekicks laughed too, not knowing why. "Ha ha ha. Ah ha 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 ha. Give me money. Never heard of paying to buy things." Beth shook off Charlotte's hand. He thought he would send the kid flying, but he underestimated her. "Looks like you're just looking for trouble." Charlotte stood up, grabbed Beth's wrist and said. Beth tried to step back but Charlotte held tight. He went to draw his dagger. Charlotte shoved him hard, sending Beth stumbling to the ground. It happened so fast he didn't even react. "Boss," his sidekicks reacted. They drew daggers and sticks and charged Charlotte. "Bastard, let me go. You're dead. You're dead." Beth thrashed wildly, trying to escape Charlotte's grip, but Charlotte's feet were like a vice, making any resistance useless. "That kid's done for. He messed with the Wild Wolf gang. He won't last long in this town." Just when everyone pitied the kid, Charlotte stood on Bess, watching the thugs rush her, and smirked, sidestepping slightly. 3 punches and 2 kicks took down 5 guys. "Ouch! Pain!" 5 people wailed on the ground. Bess was stunned, the crowd watching was stunned too. This. Everyone was shocked. She took everyone down with 3 punches and 2 kicks, without even trying. Charlotte ignored the shock, squatted down, ripped off the gold necklace and gemstone ring, then she punched Bess in the mouth. Bess screamed in pain. Chapter 3: The First Battle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lost a ton of teeth. Charlotte didn't give a damn about the thumping bass from the nearby music. She just snatched up the bloody gold tooth from the ground. He was strapped for cash, seriously strapped. "Ugh." Bess clutched his bloody mouth, watching Charlotte with a pained expression. After a few days of searching, Charlotte finally found him and kicked Bess where it hurts. Bess went flying, landing right next to his crew. "Get lost. And stay gone." At Charlotte's shout, everyone around them backed off in terror. Even Bess's boys scrambled to their feet, hauled him up, and hightailed it out of there. Watching them go, Charlotte couldn't help but laugh. "Ha ha ha ha." Charlotte felt a bit better. He'd been living like a hermit in the mountains for a year, barely speaking. He could handle the solitude, but that didn't mean he wasn't feeling pent up. He headed back to his stall, straightened up the furs, and waited for customers. Luckily, there were still some folks who appreciated a good fur, and he managed to sell a few of his best pieces. He made a cool 140 million berries. The rest of the furs were basically junk. Seeing that it was getting late and he needed to get some supplies, Charlotte packed up. He gathered his furs and headed to the blacksmith's shop. "Hey! Blacksmith! I need some ironwork done." Charlotte yelled into the shop. "Coming. What can I do for you?" A burly guy came out, a huge hammer in his hand. Here's the design. Can you make it according to these drawings? When can I pick it up?" Charlotte handed over the blueprints he'd sketched out beforehand. The blacksmith opened the drawing, looked it over, and frowned. The stuff in the drawings was pretty weird, nothing like the farm tools and swords he usually made. "Buddy, this is a tough job, and I don't have a lot of the materials. It'll take a while, maybe a month." "A month? Seriously?" Charlotte scowled. "How about you make these few pieces first, and I'll take the other parts to other shops." Charlotte didn't have a month to wait, a week was the absolute max. "All right." The blacksmith didn't argue. He agreed right away. Charlotte paid the deposit and headed to the next blacksmith shop. There were only 3 in this small town, so Charlotte gave each of them a piece of the project, and they could all have their parts ready within a week. After placing the orders, Charlotte walked toward the dilapidated shack he hadn't lived in for a year. It was out in the boonies, far from the port. Looking at the rundown shack, Charlotte figured he could make do. It couldn't be worse than living in the mountains, right? He flopped onto the bed and drifted off to sleep. "Boss! What do we do? We totally lost face. If we don't teach that punk a lesson, the wild wolves are gonna look like chumps." In a not-so-fancy but pretty big house, 4 or 5 guys with black eyes and swollen faces stood around, looking miserable. Lounging on the sofa was the boss of the Wild Wolves gang, Bang. "That kid's a dead man. I'm telling you, not even God can save him." Bess's face was twisted with rage, and his missing teeth whistled when he talked. "Did you find out who he is?" Bess asked one of his boys. Yeah, we found him. He's an orphan, lives in a shack on the west side of town. Everybody knows about him, so it wasn't hard." Hearing this, Bess stood up, went to a desk, pulled out a drawer, and grabbed a shiny pistol. "I'm gonna kill him tonight. You're with me." Bess, followed by 4 or 5 of his boys and the shiny pistol, headed west. Soon, Bess led them to the dilapidated shack. Peering through the gaps in the walls, they saw Charlotte lying inside, sound asleep. A smirk crept across Bess's lips. This was too easy. When they were about 20 yards from the shack, Bess raised the gun and aimed it at Charlotte. Without hesitation, bang. The bullet flew. Charlotte, asleep inside, felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up. He had a sudden flash of his own skull cracking open. He jerked his head to the side. The bullet grazed his scalp. Charlotte woke up in a cold sweat. "Who's there?" He roared from inside the shack. Charlotte burst out the door and saw Bess. Bess just stood there, dumbfounded, staring at Charlotte. He was sure he'd aimed right at Charlotte's head. How had he dodged it? Seeing Bess, Charlotte instantly knew what was up. A surge of anger welled up inside him. "You son of a bitch. I let you live today, and you try to assassinate me tonight. You wanna die." With a furious yell, Charlotte charged at Bess and punched him in the chest with everything he had, straight through. Charlotte's arm stuck out behind Bess's back. Bess's goons were terrified. "Gah!" Bess tried to say something, but the words got stuck in his throat. He gurgled for a few seconds and died. Charlotte yanked his bloody hand back and shook it. "Kind of gross." He glared at the rest of them. Some of the guys were paralyzed with fear, but a couple of the smarter ones turned and ran, and those were the ones Charlotte wanted. He jumped in front of them and, instead of punching, kicked them all down. Then, he grabbed 2 of them by the ankles and dragged them back. As Charlotte touched their bodies, their thoughts instantly appeared in his mind. "This is it, I'm dead. Poor me, and my girlfriend. Damn it. Let me go. I'll kill you." Charlotte glanced at the guy who wanted to kill him. He was still struggling. Something clicked in Charlotte's brain. He stopped and let him go. While the guy was wondering why he was being released, Charlotte crushed his breastbone. He died in agony. The guy next to him was shaking like a leaf. "Don't kill me. Please don't kill me." Charlotte looked at his terrified face. He didn't know exactly why he could read their minds, but he had a pretty good idea. "You're from the Wild Wolves, right? Do you know where your boss keeps his stash?" Charlotte asked. He was keeping them alive just to find out where they hid their loot. Even a little bit would be worth it. Compared to Charlotte, who was broke, even a measly 100 berries would be worth the effort. The guys looked at each other. One of the guys with a bandage on his head raised his hand. "Okay, spill it." "Sir, boss, Bess, kept all his money in the safe at his mansion. You can go get it any time." Hearing this, Charlotte grabbed his hand and started grilling him. "Is that the truth?" Chapter 4 Future Prediction and Mind Reading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Before her little brother could answer, Charlotte already knew. She wasted no time, instantly taking out the 3 who were still hesitating right in front of him. "What?" Blood splattered the kid's face, turning him white with fear. "Don't kill me. Please, don't kill me." He knelt, kowtowing, begging for his life. "Get up. You're taking me to your boss's place," Charlotte said to the only one left alive. "Yes. Yes. Yes." The guy breathed a sigh of relief. As long as he was useful, he wouldn't get iced. Snapping back to attention, he stood up, shaking, and led Charlotte the way. He wouldn't try any funny business. They soon arrived at the Wolf Gang headquarters, Beth's house. Ignoring the thugs outside, Charlotte walked right in. "Hey, you." One guy started to question her but got cut off by the guy next to him. He nodded towards the trembling, blood-soaked guy behind her, the message was clear. Their boss was probably toast, they all knew what kind of shady stuff he was into. "This the place?" Charlotte asked, eyeing the safe. "Yeah, that's it." "Right there," the blood-soaked guy said, shaking like a leaf. "Where's the key?" Charlotte asked. "We don't have it. Bess kept it." "We don't know." Charlotte frowned, she walked to the safe and ran her hand over the surface. "Go get it open." Charlotte ordered the guy, deciding to put these guys to work for her, that way, she wouldn't have to live so rough. "Yes," the guy nodded quickly. "By the way, what's your name? If you work for me, I'll let you run the wolf gang." "Serve me." "Got it," the guy, still shaking, perked up at the offer. "Don't worry, boss, I'm Ivan. I'll handle these guys and put all the wolf gang's resources at your service." Ivan swore his loyalty. "Okay, get to it. Come see me when you're done." Charlotte waved him off, sinking into the sofa, she felt mentally drained and drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Charlotte woke up groggy, maids in uniform were there with toiletries, waiting for her to freshen up. When they left, Charlotte leaned back. This is the life, the comfy sofa and the pretty maids were softening her up. "Nope, gotta stay strong and tough." Charlotte stood up, pumping her fist, she walked into the yard to see a dozen thugs in black suits standing at attention. "Hello, boss." They bowed in unison, Charlotte waved them off, she didn't care about her underlings. She put Ivan in charge so she could live comfortably and train. When she turned 17 or 18, she'd head out to sea for adventure, pirate or navy, she'd figure it out then. For now, she had to train and toughen up. "Boss, the wolf gang's here." "They all surrendered," Ivan reported. "All right, they're all yours. I'll hit you up if I need anything," Charlotte told him. "Yes, boss." Ivan grinned, Charlotte wasn't worried about Ivan double-crossing her. With raw power, all that other stuff was just smoke and mirrors. She could crush them with one punch. Besides, she had that hockey thing going on, she unexpectedly awakened it yesterday and her observation hockey could predict danger, which was like seeing the future, and when she was talking to someone, she could hear their thoughts. That was mind reading. Her observation hockey could predict the future and read minds. Talk about hitting the jackpot. She hadn't realized her hockey was so powerful, it must be because the two souls had merged, sharpening her senses, that made her hockey super strong. Guess this body isn't so ordinary, she thought back to her training up in the mountains. No matter how beat up she got, a full meal and a nap fixed her right up. Amazing. Can't let that talent go to waste. Charlotte started training. Since she didn't have proper equipment, she stuck to the basics. More than a week flew by, Charlotte returned to the mountains, savage life began, Ivan took care of the wolf gang. And she started training again. Charlotte didn't rush into swordsmanship. She kept hitting the weights, starting with a ton, she slowly increased it, running around the mountain, all day, no breaks, pushing herself. In the anime she remembered, Garp beat up 8 mountains to train his boxing. Charlotte held herself to that standard. Every day was running with weights, jumping with weights, swinging a huge dumbbell with one hand, building stamina, leg strength, arm strength, training her entire body. The intensity scared anyone who saw her, watching her train with a boulder 10 times her size. They couldn't figure out how that small body could handle such force. Soon, everyone in town knew there was a monster in their midst. Charlotte, the rumor spread far and wide. Heard about Charlotte? She's Hercules. My cousin saw her hunting in the mountains, holding a rock 10 times her size, running around. Nah, it was 20 times as big, jumping around. Nonsense. Charlotte's the kid of a god and a mortal, a demigod. The rumors got wilder, turning into stories. Merchants heard the stories and told them to others, and the stories spread. Charlotte had no idea she was becoming a legend. Hey! Food! Now! Charlotte yelled at the servants. They had already prepared a feast and were waiting for her. Charlotte sat down and started shoveling food into her mouth. She even swallowed the bones from the barbecue, leaving an empty plate. Chapter 5: The Form of the Sea. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After polishing off a dozen plates of barbecue, Charlotte felt his stomach stretch, but he digested it all pretty quickly. Then, a blast of hot, white air shot from Charlotte's head. Ivan, who was watching and taking notes, was stunned, his voice trailing off. Truthfully, Charlotte wasn't really listening. He didn't give a damn about some two-bit gang like the Wild Wolf gang, and he only kept Ivan around to make his own life easier. After a few trips by the maid, Charlotte finally felt full and brimming with energy. He hopped off the chair, a jump easily clearing over 30 feet, and with incredible speed, Charlotte then swung a punch at a massive tree that would have taken 6 people to encircle. Bang! One punch was all it took to shatter the 30-foot tree in half. Ah! The maids, seeing the tree about to fall right where they were standing, screamed, their faces going white. Charlotte, realizing the danger, gave the tree another kick, sending it flying over 30 feet away. Bang! A cloud of dust billowed in the distance. What level would that put me at in the world of pirates, with this strength and explosive power? After all, One Piece doesn't have official power levels, just fan-made ones from online forums. Back in my past life, it went something like this: cannon fodder, some strength, colonel, basic moves, brigadier general, master of at least 2 of the 6 powers, major general, master of at least 4 of the 6 powers, and 1 type of haki. Lieutenant General, master of both types of haki and full-body armament. Quasi-admiral equals warlord/emperor's right-hand man. Admiral, emperor. It was flawed, full of inconsistencies, so it's best taken with a grain of salt. Anyone who takes it seriously is a fool. I mean, you've got a monster like Vice Admiral Garp on one hand, and a lazy slob like Moria among the warlords on the other. Then there's Hawkeye Mihawk, who spars with the emperors on the daily. Bottom line, it's unreliable. Just a reference. Another 2 years flew by. Charlotte was no longer up in the mountains, he'd taken to the sea. After learning to swim, Charlotte dedicated every day to practicing swordsmanship in the water. He'd read tons of novels where the heroes always train their sword in the water. Charlotte was no swordsman, but he'd seen Zoro train. Even though the memory was hazy, Charlotte remembered the words, cut everything. Clinging to that belief, Charlotte swung his sword at the coast or in the deep sea, repeating the same movements, striving to reach the point where he could cut through anything. Phew! Charlotte dragged himself onto the beach. His aching body and the mental strain left him edgy. Every sword session left him restless and irritable, unable to settle down. 4 years had passed since the transmigration, making him 14. These last 4 years have been non-stop hard training. His physique was now at its peak for his age, and it was starting to slow down. Charlotte was worried. Since his body slowed down, he now practiced sword. After a year, he was probably as strong as Zoro when he first set sail, but still, he couldn't get to the cut everything feeling. Swinging his sword against stone only left a shallow mark. He just couldn't shake the feeling of wanting to improve. Boss! Here's the sword you asked for. Spotting Charlotte, Ivan quickly handed over towels and a basket full of swords. Charlotte had asked Ivan to get them custom-made. These days, Charlotte practiced with swords so much, and broke one every couple of days, that Charlotte asked his subordinates to deliver swords every couple of days. Ivan handled this and provided updates on the town, along with the latest newspapers. Anything going on lately? Charlotte glanced at the newspaper, asking casually. Right away, Charlotte noticed an article. The Rocks pirates had destroyed a kingdom. His eyes narrowed at the bounties listed, all characters from the anime from his past life. Rocks D. Giblek, captain of the Rocks pirates, 13 billion berries. Wanted dead or alive. Unspeakable atrocities. Whitebeard Edward Newgate, 1st Division captain of the Rocks pirates, Tremor fruit user, 4 billion berries. Heinous crimes. Golden Lion Shiki, 2nd Division captain, Float fruit user, 9 billion berries. Heinous crimes. Charlotte Lin, 3rd Division captain, Soul fruit user, 7 billion berries. Heinous crimes. Captain John, 4th Division captain, 6 billion berries. Wanted dead or alive. Unspeakable atrocities. Wang Ji, 5th Division captain, 5 billion berries. Wanted dead or alive. Heinous crimes. Silver Axe, 6th Division captain, 3 billion berries. Wanted dead or alive. Heinous crimes, Blackbeard M. Jukiyama, 7th Division Captain, copy fruit user, 2 billion berries. Wanted dead or alive. Heinous crimes. Vice Captain Blackbeard Chanwan, shield fruit user, 1 billion berries. Unspeakable atrocities, intern Kaido, 3 billion berries. Wanted alive only, the newspaper was filled with familiar faces. Boss, the number of pirates has skyrocketed in the past year, all because of the Rocks pirates. They're burning, killing, and looting all over the second half of the Grand Line, which is our neck of the woods, attacking world government allied countries and naval bases. They're using Hakanosu as their base and striking everywhere. Even the Navy can't seem to stop them. They've basically taken over the depths of the second half of the Grand Line. If the Navy doesn't do something, our island's gonna get hit too. Ivan said anxiously. He had a point. Their island sat smack dab in the middle of the Grand Line's second half, and even though there was a nearby Navy G-8 base, it was no guarantee the pirates wouldn't show up. Hearing this, Charlotte handed the newspaper back to Ivan. Don't sweat it too much. With a naval base nearby, no pirates got the guts to cause trouble around here. Go on now, and come find me if you need anything. Charlotte waved him off, completely dismissing Ivan's concerns. Bang. 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 Suddenly, explosions rocked the air. What was that? Charlotte spun toward the sound. Smoke was rising from the direction of the port in the distance. This isn't good. Both of them had the same thought at the same time. Let's go check it out. Charlotte took off toward the port. While running, he activated his observation hotkey to survey the area. Instantly, a three-dimensional image of his surroundings formed in Charlotte's mind. Crap, pirates. Charlotte saw 3 pirate ships in the port. Chapter 6 Domineering in Domineering. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 3 ships flying the pirate flag sailed into the harbor and fired a volley toward the port. Captain. We're gonna score big this time. This port is packed with merchant ships, and they're sitting ducks. We're gonna be rich. A pirate, hooded and clutching a knife, surveyed the scene. Kahahaha. Alright, you scurvy dogs, take that town and plunder everything. The captain, sporting a captain's hat, gestured with a huge cutlass toward the town, bellowing his orders. Kill. Kill. Go. Women and treasure are ours. The pirates swarmed off the ships toward the port, greed and excitement plastered across their faces. As soon as the townsfolk realized it was pirates, they bolted toward the town, some even diving into the sea. Help. Pirates. Run for your lives. Hey, watch it. Don't push. The port erupted in screams and curses as people scrambled to escape. Shells screamed overhead, slamming into buildings and setting them ablaze, adding to the chaos. Wah! Wah! Help me! Please, somebody help! Cries for help mingled with sobs, while some children stood frozen in terror. Arg! A blood-curdling scream pierced the air. Everyone turned toward the sound. A dockworker lay on the ground, a pirate's knife protruding from his chest. Run! The crowd at the port descended into utter panic. A desperate surge forward. The port became a scene of pandemonium, with a stampede erupting. Many lost their lives in the crush. Ironically, the pirate only killed one person directly, but countless others were trampled to death. Ha ha ha. Let's get this show on the road. The first mate chuckled, watching the pirates clear out the port. Smack, star. You idiot. I'll decide when the show starts. The captain backhanded the first mate across the face and swaggered down toward the port. I'm Alex Jesse, captain of the Bear Pirates, a notorious pirate with a 500 Bailey bounty on my head. Anyone who wants to live will hand over their valuables, now. Alex Jesse strode onto a raised platform and roared. His voice drowned out the surrounding din. Everyone stared up at the 3-meter-tall giant, their faces etched with fear. Charlotte, who had just arrived, overheard his announcement. 43 million Baileys, Charlotte murmured to himself. Bailey hasn't inflated that much in 40 years. If we adjust for inflation, it's like he has a bounty of hundreds of millions today. He really wasn't sure how to deal with it. Seeing the crowd paralyzed with fear, Alex Jesse bellowed with laughter. Alright, you lot, strip this town bare. Kill anyone who resists. Alex Jesse waved his hand. Charge. Over 100 pirates charged into the town, brandishing knives and guns. Not on my watch. Charlotte couldn't stand by any longer. He leaped from the rooftop, knocking 2 pirates sprawling with a couple of swift punches. Huh? What's this? Alex Jesse, hearing the commotion, saw the boy who had suddenly appeared and burst out laughing. Ha 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 ha. You think you can stop me, kid? Go home to your mommy. The other pirates joined in the laughter. Charlotte scowled. Without a word, he darted forward, vanishing before their eyes, then reappearing behind the 2 fallen pirates. Bang. Bang. 2 quick punches. Gah. The 2 pirates immediately coughed up blood and collapsed. Huh. Alex Jesse frowned, taking a closer look at Charlotte, and his face turned livid. Kill him. Get him. Alex Jesse pointed at Charlotte with his 2-meter sword. Kill. Charge. More than 100 pirates swarmed toward Charlotte, brandishing flintlock pistols and knives. Bang. 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 Bullets flew toward Charlotte, but for Charlotte, with his hockey powers, it was child's play. He swayed and dodged, the bullets whizzing past him. What? Alex Jesse frowned, sensing that this kid was more dangerous than he appeared. Seeing the horde of pirates, Charlotte didn't panic. Instead, he plunged into the fray, swinging his sword like a madman. Limbs went flying as anyone got close. Pirates screamed in agony. Charlotte ignored their cries and focused on the fight. He was finding a long-lost pleasure in the slaughter. This kind of killing filled him with excitement. His pent-up rage and frustration were finally being released. Kill. 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 Charlotte's eyes were bloodshot, his weapon dripping red. Many pirates were intimidated by Charlotte's aura and hesitated to attack, but whether they attacked or not, Charlotte was relentless. The 100+ pirates couldn't lay a scratch on him. Charlotte tore through their ranks like a tiger in a flock of sheep, slashing and killing wantonly. Damn it! Alex Jesse's face twisted with anger as he saw his men being slaughtered. These were the crew members he had painstakingly gathered over 3 or 4 years, and now he was losing them on some backwater island. While Alex Jesse was furious, those at the port watched in astonishment, mouths agape as they saw Charlotte butchering the pirates. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Yeah, Charlotte howled, gazing at the sky. An incredible aura exploded from his body, centered on Charlotte. The aura radiated outwards. Anyone who touched it, pirates and civilians alike, fainted and slumped to the ground. Everyone, paralyzed. Alex Jesse's eyes nearly popped out of his head. That's Conqueror's hockey. How could this brat have Conqueror's hockey? As a seasoned pirate who had sailed the seas for 3 or 4 years, Alex Jesse recognized Conqueror's hockey, but Charlotte was still lost in his bloodlust. He kept hacking away, ignoring the bodies on the ground. Alex Jesse was terrified. Ivan, who had finally arrived, was also staggered by the powerful hockey, barely managing to stay on his feet. What? What's going on? Ivan leaned against a nearby pillar, peering toward the battle with difficulty. What he saw was something he would never forget. His boss, the Slayer pirate, stood alone amid a sea of fallen bodies, facing a 3-meter-tall giant on the platform. The giant was staring at Charlotte in disbelief. With one final swing of his sword, the last pirate was slain. After finishing off the pirates, Charlotte threw his head back and screamed. Ha 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 ha. A wave of red, lightning-laced Conqueror's hockey swept over the surroundings once more. Ivan finally lost consciousness. Alex Jesse could only crouch down, clutching his sword to resist Charlotte's power. Chapter 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After taking down the last pirate grunt, Charlotte's eyes, which had been bloodshot, cleared up, and she got her spark back. The intense arrogance she'd been showing vanished with it. Alex Jesse pushed himself to his feet, feeling the weight lift from him. He stared at Charlotte, a flicker of fear in his eyes. Who the hell are you? Charlotte grinned. The name Charlotte Rockefeller, a wave of relief washed over Charlotte, the pressure she'd been under finally released. Turning her gaze towards the pirate captain, she raised her sword, her eyes locking onto him. "You're going to be my first step onto the high seas," she said, a quiet confidence radiating from her. "Damn it. You little punk, enough talk. I'm gonna make you pay for what you did to my crew." Alex Jesse roared, charging at Charlotte, his cutlass raised. Charlotte kept her focus on the pirate captain. Clang, star, the sound of metal on metal rang out. Charlotte effortlessly parried Alex Jesse's blow. With a flick of her wrist, she sent his cutlass flying. Then, with lightning speed, she slashed her sword across his chest. Alex Jesse staggered back, clutching his chest, a scream escaping his lips. Blood soaked his shirt, pouring from the wound. He glared at Charlotte, then hurled his cutlass at her feet. Just as Charlotte thought he was giving up, Alex Jesse howled, "Damn you. You made me do this." With a roar, his body began to swell, transforming into something monstrous. Roar! Alex Jesse's bloody maw opened wide, aimed at Charlotte. "A devil fruit user?" Charlotte murmured, surprised. She hadn't expected the pirate to have eaten a devil fruit. It seemed he was just a regular animal-type user. "That's right. I'm Captain Alex Jesse, the bear of the bear pirates." The hulking black bear roared. The wound Charlotte had inflicted on his chest was already closing. Charlotte was impressed. Typical animal type. That healing factor is something else. "But you don't really think a devil fruit is enough to beat me, do you?" Charlotte said, flicking the blood from her sword. Without another word, she lunged forward. The blade flashed, aiming for his neck. The savage bear, Alex Jesse, didn't back down, raising his massive paws to swat her away. The sword met the bear's paw with a resounding thud. The brute force of the blow stopped Charlotte in her tracks, her sword barely scratching the surface of his thick hide. Roar! Seeing that she couldn't break through his defense, Alex Jesse's confidence soared. He charged at Charlotte, his massive bulk hurtling toward her. Charlotte quickly raised her sword defensively. Bang! Crack! The force sent Charlotte staggering back several steps. The sword in her hand shattered. The impact had been too much, and it was now just a broken hilt. Wild bear Alex Jesse saw it all and erupted in laughter. "Ha ha ha ha. What are you gonna do now, little punk? How are you gonna survive without your sword?" "Guess I'm a little rusty on my swordsmanship," Charlotte said, glancing at the hilt in her hand. She shrugged and tossed it aside, cracking her knuckles and rotating her neck. "Looks like we're going hand to hand." Charlotte locked eyes with Alex Jesse, a fire burning in her gaze. She moved with surprising speed, leaping over 30 feet in a single bound, landing in front of the wild bear and throwing a punch. Bang! The wild bear was sent sprawling into a pile of crates. Charlotte was breathing hard, a visible heat radiating from her, showing she was finally serious. Giving the wild bear no time to recover, she charged again. As he staggered to his feet, she delivered a crushing uppercut to his jaw. The wild bear didn't even have time to react, spitting out a mouthful of blood, and something else. Only the wild bear knew it was his tongue. The blow sent him flying skyward. Charlotte took off again, soaring above him, and brought her leg down in a brutal axe kick, smashing the wild bear Alex Jesse back into the sea. As a devil fruit user, the sea was his worst enemy. The impact forced him back into his human form. Charlotte plunged into the water and grabbed the unconscious Alex Jesse. Pulling him back onto the deck, she grabbed a long knife and brought it down on his head. Blood splattered, and the body was cleaved in two. Charlotte grabbed Alex Jesse's head and hung it from the flagpole. The battle was over quickly, but the scene was a mess. Those not killed by Charlotte were either stunned by her conqueror's hockey or simply lying in the crowded port. Charlotte didn't care when they woke up. She headed toward the 3 pirate ships. She wanted to see if there was anything worth taking. If she found a devil fruit, that would be a major win. No matter what kind, it could be sold for at least 20 million, and a powerful one could fetch over 100 million, but Charlotte was getting ahead of herself. After searching all 3 ships, she found nothing but a measly 10 million berries and over 70 slaves crammed into the cargo holds. Sensing people in one of the holds, Charlotte was surprised. Their aura was weak, as if they hadn't eaten in days. Entering the hold, Charlotte found a dim space filled with tattered clothes and emaciated people huddled together, afraid to speak. "Who's there?" Charlotte's voice startled those inside. Someone peered up at her from the shadows. A young man stood in the doorway, covered in blood, an eerie sight in the cramped hold. Everyone instinctively cowered in fear. Charlotte looked around, but no one answered. Guess I'm not welcome here. Charlotte turned to leave. "Yes, sir." "Wait." A frantic female voice called out. Charlotte turned back. Even in the dim light, she could see who had spoken. She fixed her gaze on the girl, waiting for her to continue. "Sir. We're from the Cacna Kingdom. The bear pirates attacked our country and enslaved us. Please, save us." Chapter 8 5 Girls. You are listening at novelfull.audio. "A slave?" Charlotte asked casually. He walked up to the girl. Even with ashes smeared on her face, her beauty was still obvious. No wonder she was taken as a slave. Charlotte murmured, looking at her. The girl blushed under his gaze. Charlotte, with his long golden hair and athletic build, had his clothes slightly torn from the fight, revealing well-defined muscles. Charlotte glanced at the lock, then snapped it open with a quick tug. He opened the door and let the girl out. There was more than one girl inside. 4 more emerged. "I took out all the pirates. You're free," Charlotte told the 5 young women. Their previously gloomy eyes lit up instantly. He then moved on to the other cells, breaking the locks one by one and releasing the prisoners. With that done, Charlotte walked out, hands in his pockets. He'd stumbled upon these people, so why not save them? He hated slavery anyway. Leaving the dim cabin, Charlotte took a deep breath. He'd felt a wave of despair inside, and with his empathic abilities, he knew he wasn't wrong. It was a horrible feeling. No wonder Balloric Redfield was so well liked. Having that level of mind reading really made you feel for others. "Phew," he exhaled. Charlotte grabbed the box of cash and stepped off the pirate ship. "Sir," just as he was about to leave, the familiar female voice called out again. Charlotte turned with a frown. "What is it?" "You're free now, why are you calling me?" He sounded impatient. He just wanted to get out of there. The girls exchanged glances before kneeling before him. "Sir, please take us in. We'll work ourselves to the bone to repay you." It was the same girl from before. Charlotte felt a headache coming on seeing the raw emotion on their faces. He could tell they were sincere. "Why?" Charlotte asked. They fell silent, a wave of sadness washing over them. This irritated him further. Knowing too much was definitely a curse. "Sir, we have nowhere to go. Our kingdom is constantly raided by pirates because we can't pay the sky-high taxes. It's been completely destroyed, a ghost island now. We're the only ones left. The pirates kept us because they thought we were pretty enough to sell to slave traders. Please, take us with you." The girl knelt, sobbing. Charlotte was affected by her strong emotions. "Get up," he said, helping them to their feet. "What are your names?" The girl in the lead immediately answered. "Sir, I'm Bruce Martha." She offered a slight aristocratic bow. The other girls introduced themselves as well. "Sir, I'm Kenneth Janney." "Sir." Louise Alice. "Sir." Hebrew Nell. "Sir." Janice Jillian. "Martha, Jenny, Alice, Nell, and Jillian, right?" Charlotte confirmed. "Yes, sir." They replied in unison. "All right, you can come with me from now on. You'll be my maids. My name is Rockefeller Charlotte. Call me young master from now on." "Yes, young master." The 5 girls said in unison. Charlotte nodded, satisfied. Having these beautiful young women as maids was definitely a plus. Anyone sold as slaves was bound to be easy on the eyes. "Come on," he said, turning towards the port. As for the others, Charlotte couldn't care less. He wasn't their dad. "Hey! Wake up! Wake up!" Charlotte walked over to Ivan and kicked him. Ivan was still out cold from the display of his conqueror's hockey. Not just Ivan, everyone on the pier was unconscious. He hadn't realized his hockey was that strong. Charlotte was secretly shocked. After kicking Ivan in the ribs, he finally stirred. "Boss!" Ivan was startled to see Charlotte, then looked around. "The sea. Where are the pirates?" He frantically searched, seeing only corpses and the townspeople passed out on the ground. Charlotte pointed to the bear's head. Ivan followed his finger, his eyes widening. The pirate who'd been rampaging just moments ago was now decapitated and hanging from the flagpole. "You! Boss, did you do this?" Ivan asked, pointing and trembling. Charlotte nodded. Why was his sidekick such a wimp? "Hurry up, I'm leaving these 5 to you. They're going to be my maids, so train them well." With that, Charlotte dismissed Ivan. He was a lost cause. After 3 years of training, he couldn't even handle a glimpse of his hockey. What a waste. Annoyed, Charlotte headed back to his mansion. It was getting dark, and he'd had a frustrating fight. Only after reaching his home did he realize why the town had been so quiet. Everyone had fainted. His hockey had covered the entire town. Unconscious bodies littered the streets. When he got home, there was no one to cook. By the time Charlotte arrived, Ivan had already brought the 5 maids. "Ivan, you're just in time. Get me some food. I need to recharge," Charlotte said, looking at Ivan with indifference. Ivan, respectful as ever, led the maids to the kitchen. Even if he lacked strength, Ivan was good at getting things done. That's why he'd stayed by Charlotte's side for 4 years. Charlotte sat on the sofa, replaying the battle. He'd awakened his hockey without even trying. His thoughts were clear, and he felt incredibly comfortable. That feeling only came after a wild kill. Could it be I'm comfortable because of the killing? Have I become an executioner? When did I get so twisted? Charlotte mused, stroking his chin. Chapter 9: The Town's Hero. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ever since Charlotte took down the bear pirates who invaded our town, everyone knows we've got a real hero living here. "Hey, Charlotte, want an orange?" Whenever Charlotte walks through town, folks look at him with such kindness, it makes him a little embarrassed. No, I'm good." Charlotte waves his hand quickly. "Boss. The Wild Wolf Gang is collecting protection money today, and nobody's refusing. Even the big shots are eager to pay up." Ivan reports, following Charlotte. "Really? People are actually paying up front?" Charlotte asks, surprised. The Wild Wolf Gang used to have to chase people down for protection money. Now they're lining up to pay. That's new. It's all thanks to you, boss. Ever since you single-handedly saved the town, wiping out the bear pirates and keeping us safe, everyone wants your protection. Ivan says, looking at Charlotte with admiration. Charlotte smiles, enjoying the feeling. It's pretty good, actually. Martha's 5 maids follow Charlotte, their eyes wide with curiosity. Their old kingdom was just a tiny, barren island with barely over 1,000 people. They didn't even have a real port, so merchant ships never stopped there. They were dirt poor. Mr. Charlotte. Mr. Charlotte. As Charlotte walks into the port, people bow and greet him. Charlotte nods back with a smile, and walks down to where 3 pirate ships are docked. The pirate flags have been torn down, they're pretty beat up, these ships, and small, only about 50 meters long. "Ivan, we got any shipbuilders in town?" Charlotte asks. "Boss. This port is mainly for merchant ships, so yeah, we've got some shipbuilders. Not top of the line, though. They mostly build small boats and do repairs." Ivan explains. Charlotte rubs his chin, thinking. He's planning to head out to sea when he's 17 or 18, and he'll need a decent ship by then. He's not going to sail in some tiny wooden tub like Luffy, that's not the life he wants. How much money do we have in the bank, and what would it cost to build a ship? Charlotte asks. He's still not sure what things cost in this world. Boss, depends on the size. Under 50 meters, you're looking at 6 million to 50 million belly. Over that, more like 80 million belly or more. If it's a custom build, then it depends on the materials. Good materials can easily double the price. Ivan explains. Charlotte rubs his chin, listening. And how much protection money are we pulling in each month? He's realizing he's going to need a lot more cash. He only has 3 or 4 years before he sets sail, and he needs a ship that can handle the second half of the Grand Line. Based on this month's collections, we're looking at around 300 million belly. After expenses, that leaves about 200 million. The biggest chunk of that goes to your food, boss. Ivan says. Charlotte looks at him, shocked. 100 million on food? He demands an explanation. Ivan smiles wryly at the boss's confused expression. Boss, you eat sea kings and wild beasts every day. Hunters have to go out and get them, and we have to pay them. That takes a lot of belly, or nobody'd want to hunt those things. Charlotte is silent. He's spending nearly $1 million a day on food. Add in the cost of his training equipment, and there won't be much left from this month's collections to build a ship. Alright, I'll take care of the food from now on. Don't buy any more. Charlotte decides. He'll start hunting Neptunes himself. It'll be good exercise, even if it's a bit dangerous. Otherwise, he'll be broke before he knows it. Yes, boss. Ivan nods. Get those 3 pirate ships fixed up. They'll be my fishing boats for hunting Neptunes. Get them remodeled ASAP. Charlotte tells Ivan. Yes, sir. Ivan bows slightly, satisfied. Charlotte leaves the port. He needs to train. Arriving at a deserted beach, Charlotte stands in the water, sword in hand. Facing the waves, Charlotte starts swinging. Just trying to break through the barrier in his heart. This training goes on for 3 months. For those 3 months, all Charlotte does is swing his sword at the sea. Somehow, this day after day of swinging the sword really made him famous. The sword light flashed. Charlotte unleashed a flying slash 10 meters long. Seeing the 10-meter-long slash across the beach, Charlotte was about to cry. After swinging the sword for 1.5 years, he finally made a name for himself. He had reached the realm of swordsman, right? His own strength has almost reached the level of ordinary lieutenant generals. In addition to not knowing how to be armed and domineering, Charlotte believes that even if she meets a lieutenant general, she can touch it. Formidable power, as well as the sword hero's symbol of flying and slashing, and the color of knowledge that can cover thousands of miles, and his color of knowledge can predict the future and read minds, as well as this domineering arrogance. But the arrogance of the domineering color has been released since the last time. After one time, she never showed it again, but Charlotte was not discouraged. It was her own who could control it sooner or later. Now that she has mastered flying slash, Charlotte is overjoyed. Holding a long sword in his hand, he slashed wantonly at the beach. Wow, ha 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 ha. Seeing the entire beach being plowed by herself, Charlotte couldn't hold back the joy in her heart anymore and laughed wildly on the beach. And this scene was seen by 5 maids standing by the beach. They all looked at Charlotte with radiance, their eyes filled with admiration. After Charlotte swung another slash, sheathed her sword, back on the beach. Master, each of the 5 maids served Charlotte with something like a towel. Charlotte wiped her sweat with a towel. Let's head home. Charlotte says, handing the sword to Jillian. Yes. Young master. The 5 maids say playfully. Back at his villa, Ivan walks over. Boss, we're running low on Neptunes in the kitchen. Need you to get some more. Ivan says to Charlotte. Okay, I got it. I've pretty much cleared out all the sea kings around this island in the last 3 months. I'll go out deeper tomorrow. Charlotte replies. After 3 months of hunting, the nearby sea kings, the ones close to shore, and any large fish have pretty much all been taken out by Charlotte. Chapter 10 Treasure Chest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next morning, Charlotte took about a dozen of her younger brothers out on the fishing boat, the one they'd converted from those 3 pirate ships. These kids were all good sailors. As soon as they heard Charlotte was going out to hunt sea kings, they volunteered to handle the boat. The fishing boat sailed out of the port and into the open sea. This was the farthest Charlotte had ever gone. Seeing the port disappear behind them, Charlotte focused and prepared for anything. "Captain, ship ahead." As they sailed, a pirate ship zeroed in on them. Charlotte stood on the deck, closed her eyes, and focused her senses. Suddenly, a ship appeared in her awareness. This piqued Charlotte's interest. She didn't expect to run into a ship just an hour out to sea. She wondered if it was a pirate ship or a merchant vessel. Just as Charlotte was thinking this, a loud boom echoed from the distance. "Figures. It's gotta be pirates." Charlotte opened her eyes and watched cannonballs splash around her ship. Luckily, the opposing gunner had terrible aim, and the shots were landing all around them. Even so, the crew was starting to panic. "Don't freak out. I'm here." Charlotte's voice carried clearly to everyone on board. The sailors fought down their fear and looked to Charlotte. "You guys handle the ship. I'll take care of these pirates." With that, Charlotte leaped up and punched an incoming cannonball, knowing exactly where the shell would land. Thanks to her senses, Charlotte detonated it with a single blow. Boom. The explosion rocked the air, but Charlotte landed back on the deck unharmed. "Boss is awesome," the sailors roared with excitement. Charlotte grinned. On the other ship, things were less cheerful. "Captain, this one's trouble," a sailor with a telescope frowned after seeing Charlotte blow up the shell with her bare hands. "What are you scared of? We got numbers." "Ram, the pirate captain shoved the lookout aside and barked orders at the helmsman. "Aye, Captain," seeing the pirate ship bearing down on them, Charlotte smiled. She'd been worried they'd try to wear her down with cannon fire, but they were coming right at her. "Hold tight, I'm going to meet them." Charlotte jumped, using something like a moon step to propel herself toward the approaching pirates. It's something Charlotte learned from the Navy's 6th form. Because she only grasped the basic principles, Charlotte couldn't use the moon step to its full potential, only allowing short, low-altitude bursts, but it was more than enough to deal with these pirates. "Hey, kid. Who are you?" The pirate captain, seeing Charlotte suddenly appear on his ship, asked warily. He thought they were dealing with some small fry, but it looked like they'd found a big problem. "Aren't you guys pirates?" Charlotte gestured at the huge pirate flag flying above the ship. Before the pirate captain could reply, Charlotte charged, landing a punch right in his face. Wham! The pirate captain went down hard. "Get him!" he shouted, clutching his face and pointing at Charlotte. Enraged by the sudden attack, the captain gave the order to attack. Charlotte smiled. She didn't even bother drawing her sword. Instead, she charged in, fists flying. Bang, bang, bang. She waded into the crowd, and before they could react, they were falling like dominoes. Most of the pirates who hit the deck stayed down for good. Chests caved in or skulls cracked open. None of them were in good shape. "What the?" The pirate captain's eyes widened in horror. He scrambled backward, his legs kicking wildly. Charlotte turned her bloody fists toward him, leaping forward. Before he could say a word, she delivered a brutal uppercut. Bam! The pirate captain went down, his head snapping back. Looking at the headless corpse, splattered with blood and gore, Charlotte wondered, when did I get so messed up? I didn't leave a single one alive. Then she waved to her crew on the fishing boat to come over. While Charlotte charged ahead, the sailors had been glued to the ship's railing, watching their boss kick ass. Seeing the signal, they scrambled to maneuver the boat closer. "Be boss!" Several sailors jumped aboard, their legs shaking as they surveyed the carnage. "Pile all these bodies up and use them as bait for the sea kings," Charlotte ordered. She didn't feel like wandering around this ocean forever. Instead of finding the sea kings, she would lure them in. "Why yes, sir," The sailors stammered. Charlotte headed into the cabin to see if she could find any treasure. After a quick search, she found a treasure chest in the captain's quarters. She stared at the chest. Could there be a devil fruit inside? Charlotte's hands trembled as she reached for the chest. After all, the chest was the right size for a devil fruit. Maybe I'll get lucky. Find a devil fruit on my first time out to sea. Looking at the lock, Charlotte ripped it open with all her strength. She opened it and looked inside. Huh? What is this? Charlotte stared at the blueprint in her hand, puzzled. Could it be a treasure map? She examined the paths on the drawing. Maybe it is. The location of the pirate captain's hidden treasure. But where is this place? Charlotte had no idea what the chart depicted. She decided to hold on to it and see if it would come in handy later. After putting the blueprint away, Charlotte found a few wanted posters. They were the bounties for the pirates on the ship. PSH. A pirate with a 100 Bailey bounty dares to act so tough. Looking at the low numbers, Charlotte scoffed. After rummaging through the captain's room, Charlotte had found close to 600 million Bailey. Boss, help. Sea kings, lots of them. Charlotte suddenly heard one of her younger brothers yell. Lots of sea kings. How many? Charlotte focused her senses. Whoa, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. How many sea kings are there? Did I stumble into their nesting grounds? Charlotte rushed out of the captain's cabin. The pirate ship was surrounded by sea kings. Quick! Throw the corpses overboard, lure those sea kings away. Get us out of here, Charlotte shouted. The sailors scrambled to their posts, operating the ship with frantic energy. Boss, they're blocking the way, the helmsman cried out in despair, seeing the sea kings in front of them. Damn it, Charlotte drew her sword.